One. Hey, college wrestling fans, it's Johnny Thompson, number one. Today's guest is a two-time California high school state qualifier, went on to be a three-time All-American in college, and now he's in the world of mixed martial arts. Please welcome to the show, Aaron LaFarge.
Hey, Steven, thank you for having me on.
So, Aaron, in high school, as said, you were a two-time California State qualifier. You went on to be a three-time All-American in college. We're talking a fourth place finish for Palomar and the California Community College Athletic Association. Then you go on to place fifth in the NAIA for Montana State Northern. You transfer and you make the finals of the NAIA Championships wrestling for Oklahoma City. Now, we both know California is a state with only one class. And you see a lot of guys like yourself who never made the California State podium, but go on to earn medals at the collegiate level. What is your stance on California only having one division for high school wrestling? Is that a pro or is that a con for the high school wrestlers in California?
Right, Steven, that's actually a really good question. I just think being as a wrestler and a coach, that's always the ongoing question among coaches and athletes and people, right? As time goes on, they you realize that one state champion kind of it's great as an athlete because you can truly say, "Hey, I am one of the best guys in the state of California." One class, 900 plus schools. It's a pretty awesome deal, right? But on the flip side, you're a coach, you're trying to get a guy, some exposure, trying to get some guy, some notoriety in the college program. You say, hey, this guy's a state qualifier, went 4-2, was in the match to place, lost a tough match. A college coach is probably thinking, all right, let's give this guy a look, but you're not really jumping up and down, right? Per se, hey, you look at a different state, you get a guy that's maybe been in the finals a couple times. You think, hey, I'd rather take this kid. But I think that's the part that hurts California. I think we could really do two or three state champions, and that would just help out the college kids getting to the next level, right? Giving them an opportunity to really compete at a higher level. Because I see kids all the time, right? That's their thing. They don't maybe do 1 year of junior college, and they don't continue on. Unfortunately, I had a kid grew up like that. He lost in the state finals actually to a guy named David Klingstein. Wrestled 1 year at junior college and never competed after that. David Klingstein went on to be a Big 12 champion for Nebraska, and he continued on, but it's just some guys fall by the wayside. Unfortunately, some guys get lost in the shuffle, and I wish there was just more opportunity for California kids.
Absolutely. Speaking of the California Community College Athletic Association, unlike the rest of the college wrestling world, it operates as a fall sport. You guys get started in early September and you guys are done 2 to 3 weeks before Christmas. Did you like that schedule versus the regular schedule of college wrestling? What were the pros and cons of that?
Yeah, and then too, I wanted to add, Stephen, we are talking just to actually finish your last question.
Sure.
But on the pro side, there's a guy like Jerry Abbas, never a state champion, right, in California. Jerry Abbas finished fourth and second, goes on to be, three-time finalist, four-time All-American, first guy to, just amazing career for Fresno State. So, never a state champion, but had a great college career. But to add to your next question, I think personally, me going into junior college, I actually was recruited to unfortunately, some programs that don't have a Division I program anymore. I was recruited to Cal State Fullerton by Coach Dan Hicks. Um, I was recruited to Cal Poly by Coach Azevedo, San Francisco State, and Cal Baptist at the time, right? And it was actually the coach at Cal Baptist. He coached at Palomar for a long time, and he said, "Hey, it's this is the schedule, a little less weigh-ins, right? You can focus more on training and proving. It's not as hard on your body, right? You can just get in and kind of get out." So that was always my goal in mind, to just do one season and do the best I could. And I thought it was perfect for me because I love to train. I was a guy that was always in the room, loved to train, loved to get better. fine. And but one thing I'll let you know, Stephen, is the California JC system. A lot of people don't know that some guys continue to compete, right? You could the second half of that, what you're talking about after December, there's still some opens you can compete at. Right now at Palomar, the head coach Timmy Box. So shout out to Tim Box, doing a great job. Wrestled at Northern Colorado for Troy Nickerson. So he has these guys competing in Vegas and he does beach wrestling stuff. So it's pretty awesome about what he's doing. And I know we competed at the Fullerton Open at the time. That's I competed 1 year. I finished 4-2, had one of the better finishes for a junior college wrestler. So that used to be UC Davis and Cal State Fullerton and so you did what at that as a junior college guy, you're pretty much getting noticed by some schools. Another guy, Archuleta, did really well there. Um, he went on to Purdue from California JC. So yeah, just some good names. Norman Richmond beat a guy named beat TJ Dillashaw at the Open as a junior college wrestler. So just some opportunities out there to just to get better out of the JC system in California.
Aaron, post your collegiate career, you coached at the high school level, including your alma mater of La Habra. And that's a
Yeah.
really interesting story in itself. The program was almost dead, we almost discontinued and the danger of extinction. And you were appointed by the athletic director, Frank McCarroll. And in 2 years, you completely turned that program around. You produced a CIF medalist, and by year number 2, you had 25 kids out for the team. Plus, you also start a women's high school wrestling team. Take us on that journey real quick.
So, Steven, this is a question that nobody's really asked me. I mean, I've talked to a few coaches about it, and it kind of just like, wow, talking about starting from the ground up, right? So, unfortunately, I was coaching in Montana. Actually, we had a great team, great program going. We we had one guy go on, Nick Coons, to be an NAIA national champion for Montana State. Northern was on our team, was a state runner-up for Capital High School in Montana, in Helena, Montana. We had a Carson Disroser was in the junior high coming into the high school program. He's at the Citadel NCAA qualifier now. I mean, we had state medalists, in Montana. So after the season, I get a call from the athletic director at the time. He had just retired a few years ago now, but he said, "Hey, Aaron, I don't know what you're doing now." Or he said, "I know, I see you do MMA, and yeah, I heard you're coaching in a completely different state. Would you be interested in coming back to coach? We do not have a coach. School started already." And I'm like, "Hey, uh, what do you mean you don't have a coach?" And he's like, "We don't have a coach. It's the first week of school. What would it take to make you help, come back and coach this pro? We just not able to find a coach." And I'm like, wow, that's terrible. What is the opposite if I'm not able to? I'm coaching in a completely different state. And he was like, we just won't have a program anymore then. And I'm like, okay, like that can't happen. I gotta save, I read your blog, Steven, I know what could happen to wrestling programs, right? So I just packed my stuff up and just one trip, just head back. And it was like the following week we had our first meeting. He goes, "Hey, we announced it on the intercom. We send out, just stuff around school. We're gonna have the first wrestling meeting." So everyone's pretty, we've got the news out. So I show up, Steven, 4 kids show up to the meeting. So I'm like, wow, are there any returners, or is there anybody that, like, where is? So he was like, this is your team. This is everyone. So one kid's returner, I knew his family from before. So yeah, we just hit the ground running, Steven. We had a really good year, just a whole rebuilding process. We got like 20 kids to wrestle. A couple other returners came back, and then the following year we kind of, I started the girls program actually that first year. So the girls program, like a few more girls came out, and then we had a kid, at the state tournament. So we had 2 kids at the Masters tournament. which is the tournament before the state tournament. So we just, yeah, it was a pretty big deal. The guy that was at the state tournament, it was just awesome. He upset like three guys that ranked real high and to get to the state tournament, right? So it was just a really good season. He's actually the last state qualifier for the school.
Oh
He's the
wow.
last guy. They haven't had one since. So they had one girl. So thank goodness for the girl program, right? A girl, we're talking years later. They haven't had a guy state qualifier. They've had a girl at the state tournament. I think she was actually in the round of place too. So, Stephen, that's what I wanted to do is just leave something for the next person. And to finish that question, unfortunately, I took a job in Oklahoma with an old college coach of mine, up in Oklahoma City here. We had a great year at PC West High School. We had two 6A state qualifiers and one state medalist for uh, one of the guys that wrestled here was Johnny Thompson from he went to Oklahoma State. So,
I'm sort
but
of
I'll be
con-
at McLeod High School this year.
I'm sort
Yeah,
of
so I'll be at
familiar with Johnny Thompson. Yeah.
yeah, so this is his previous high school. They definitely got like a little thing of him in the school hallway. So I'll be at McLeod High School this year though. So Coach Winters there has got the girls state champions out here in Oklahoma. So he brought me on. I'm pretty fired up about that. So, but it was a great experience at La Habra. I left something good for the previous coach. Unfortunately, they haven't had a state qualifier since. And I'm a little disappointed, Steven. They had all the names of all the wrestlers and the history at La Habra, and unfortunately the athletic director, new guy, took him down. So,
Oh no.
I, oh no, that's what I said, Steven. So I jumped on a phone call with him, sent him an email, kind of just like what anybody else would do, and I just said, hey, just want to let you know if the program's going in the right direction. We definitely, alumni care about the program. Everyone's name that was up on the board, not just mine. I poured into that place. Like I hope you just all the moves are specifically to push the program forward. But yeah, Stephen, to answer that question, just a little history lesson on La Habra. That it's a football town. Great athletes come out of there. That's what a lot of people don't know about the place. A lot of great athletes. Guys in the big leagues playing baseball. A couple Super Bowl champions. Ronnie Hillman won a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning as a running back, starting running back in the Super Bowl game. Greg Gaines came from La Habra, Super Bowl champion with the Rams, currently on the Bucks. So it's a football town for sure, but they definitely they know La Habra. There's a wrestling presence there. So I like to feel like I you know put La Habra on the map there. So
Yeah.
there's only one national guy to ever wrestle for a national championship and to compete for any national championship. So you're talking right now, Steven. So
And you've also been successful in many other areas of your life as well, including the world of mixed martial arts. You were a Smash Global Flyweight Champion. You've been the number one contender a numerous amount of times, fighting for other titles. It's obvious that wrestling is a fantastic base for mixed martial arts. How do you feel that MMA has helped the sport of wrestling in terms of growth, popularity, and recognition?
here's the thing, Steven. It is an interesting dynamic going on right now in both wrestling and MMA, right? I think MMA, of course, wrestling is king. I think it's still king to this day as it was when MMA was first getting big, right? And I think it's still important. You see some of the top guys, still, 135. You see a guy like Marab and Aljamain Sterling and these guys that are, even, Cejudo's in there, but these guys come from a wrestling background. But I think personally, with the NIL deals for wrestling, you don't see people leaving wrestling anymore, which I personally think is great. I think it's great for the sport of wrestling. It's going to keep the people involved in either coaching or competing. I think for a time, right? Like even a guy like Chad Mendes, that he was a guy that was at Cal Poly when I was getting recruited, who was just in the NCAA finals. And I was that's someone that, he made the move and there was really Steven, I'm sure you remember doing maybe some write-ups at the time. There was really no wrestling there or money in wrestling. to compete after, it was really just hard. I mean, I think guys are making like you could make a teacher salary. You could probably make more than competing freestyle on a national team, right? But
Yeah.
I think now in ideals, you see some of these guys making tons of money, life-changing money for them and their families. So I don't think MMA, you don't have to do that anymore. You could go and coach and make a career out of it or continue to wrestle. Another NAIA guy was Saran. I see he competes. Brandon Wright from Grandview. These guys have made national teams and did good for themselves. So um, yeah, it goes hand in hand, but I think, that's the changing, evolving factor of wrestling, the NIL deals. I think they're probably not so great for the coaches. They gotta, make adjustments, but I think keeping people in wrestling is actually changing, I see. So um, but yeah, as far as wrestling in MMA, I think it's great. I think it'll always bring shed light on the greatest sport on earth, right? Like I think wrestling is the best sport. I personally train with guys that get a big smile. Like I train with guys from, different places, Russia or whatever, or Russia and some of those Eastern European countries, and they get a big smile like, hey, you got cauliflower here, you're a wrestler. There's that wrestling connection. So
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that how much of a change that there has been for wrestling in general. That's a really good point. And sometimes we're the kind of sport where we forget the way things were. We treat everything as if it's the here and now as if it's always been. But I don't
right.
know if a lot of younger wrestling fans and younger wrestlers or even younger coaches are aware of this. But I'm 40 years old. I'm not sure how old you are, but I'm 40. And I remember when I was a kid, and you would study up on and learn about Olympic and world wrestlers. These were guys winning Olympic gold, silver, bronze medals at the Olympics, and you would kind of figure out about their training process. And at the time, I don't know if you guys have them in California or not, but they're around here, around other places. There's a store called the Home Depot. Are you familiar with Home Depots?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's the hardware. It's kind of, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but when I was a kid, growing up, the Olympians and the world team members, a lot of them had jobs at Home Depot. That's how they were able to support themselves through training and, being able, because Home Depot would work with Olympic athletes, to give them schedules around their training and around their competition. And it's just so weird to think about that because, like Jordan Burroughs, Olympic gold medalist, he won $1 million, right? They gave him $1 million for being
Right.
an Olympic gold medalist. If we go back 25 years ago when you won an Olympic gold medal, the wrestling community cared about it, but the rest of the world was like, so what? Right? And so these guys were
That's
working at
that.
home. Yeah. So these guys were working at Home Depot in order to be able to compete. So to see how much it's changed in that 1/4 of a century shows you how much wrestling has grown. And like you were saying, like what you alluded to a few minutes ago, that gives us a very optimistic and positive outlook for the future of wrestling.
Well, and then too, that's such a great point, Steven. That's like diving a little bit deeper into the question, right? Like Mark Schultz is somebody I've met through an uncle of mine that coached for a long time, and he's somebody that keeps up with me on, social media, Twitter. So I've actually, had a little, talk to Mark Schultz here and there. He's a really awesome guy. But even him, he's got to, sell his old wrestling shoes. He's got to sell his old Team USA gear. That's like terrible for me because it's like here's a guy that poured his heart and soul, him and his brother that are like just not just legends of the sport, and they just and also too, an old high school or a teammate of mine coming up, growing up in at La Habra was Aaron Pico's older brother. Patrick Pica was a teammate of mine. And he was a kid who, he kind of started that kind of NIL process. So I kind of saw it. I kind of remember, like, even remember him at 10, 11 years old being sponsored by certain brands and things. And I remember thinking, like, see, this kid, he gets it, like, You want to you want to do what you love, but you also, you want to get compensated. If you pour your heart and soul and you win a medal for Team USA at the Olympic Games or World Championships, or you're on the U.S. national team, you want to be able to continue to do that, right? And I think this is why USA is excelling right now, because we're able to do that at more of a grassroots cadet junior level, right? Aaron Pico kind of was kind of like the first kid, right? Like one of them to really his whole career through Team USA, like from cadet all the way up to like senior, competing at senior and like competing at the Olympic trials as a teenager. Right now, all these guys are blowing the doors open, PJ Duke and the Blaze Forrest, but Pico was doing this near almost 10 years ago. I remember this because his brother was my teammate, and Aaron would come watch us at the duels. He would show up to our practice, like show us like he would say, "Hey, can I show you guys a move?" He'd
Yeah.
show us a move. He'd be a little guy. So there's, I've been around some people, Steven. I rubbed some elbows with people, and he was one of them. So it's great to see that wrestling is giving that opportunity to their athletes. Nowadays. Unfortunately, it skipped my generation. And you just got some scars, some bumps and bruises, and you say, "Hey, man, we went out and competed hard." But some of these guys, they get a nice coin now. So.
Yeah, it's very true. Aaron, my last question for you today is I know that you're also a huge boxing fan. You've had a lot of success in boxing. You know, you and I have talked in the past. You obviously have a much larger boxing background than I do, but I have a small itty bitty, not really. I I never boxed myself. I helped train state champion in 2005, so that's the closest I've ever been to boxing. Now, I was able to see, and you know as well, there are many comparisons and similarities between boxing and wrestling, right? I want you to tell our audience out there, why should a wrestler look at taking up boxing, and why should a boxer look at taking up wrestling?
And so this is another very good question, Stevie, because when we originally spoke, I
Hey, Aaron, real
so
quick here.
actually
Aaron, you're you're
Aaron,
you're
Aaron got me into
Aaron, can you hear me? I,
yeah.
I lost you there for a second. Sorry, bud. Can you hear me okay now?
Okay,
Nothing.
you can't.
Uh-uh. Yeah, there you're coming back now. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. I'm sorry to make you do this again. Start over at the beginning because I lost you right after I asked the question.
Okay.
So, yeah, so go ahead and start the beginning with your answer.
Okay, same question, right, Steve?
Yeah, the same
Wrestling.
question. Yeah,
I
you're
would say
cutting
for a
in and
wrestler,
out.
okay. So for a wrestler to take up boxing, I just think it's just because Aaron and his father actually got me into his name's Anthony. It was when he had first started training with a guy named, Valentin Kalika. He actually picked me up. I was at Palomar. I just finished my season. So I was, teenager, 19, and he told me, "Hey, there's a boxing gym here, you know, in La Habra. You should go. I already told the coach about you, and I think you should go and really, go train and just, it'll help your wrestling." They actually, both of them, both, and Aaron was just a kid, he was young and showed me how to wrap his hands and stuff. So I went in and it's just, I realized, first thing I realized, a lot of the movements is like the same, turning your hips as you punch. You use your hips. It's very much like a sprawl, right? You turn your hips down, you sprawl on someone hard, or you like, it's like turning the corner. And it's a lot of it setting like traps and angles, just like wrestling, right? You got to work around somebody or like a go behind or just getting an angle. And I always thought like that was just great. And that's what the first thing they told me. They go, "Hey man, you know how to like move your feet and like cut angles." They knew about right away. They're like, you move really well for like never really doing, just coming in. So, and then on the flip side of that, the flip side on the other side is for a boxer to do that. I mean, a joke that I always had with them was like, hey, we were out walking, we got into it, and I took you down, what would you do? You know what I mean? So
Right.
we would just joke around in the gym. We'd go, hey, let's go in the ring, and I would take them down,
Yeah.
and they'd be like, just looking on their back, looking up at me like, like a deer in headlights. But I'm like, hey, man, this is a different world, right? So just do it for fun. There was a guy that actually did. He would do like wrestling and jujitsu. Like he would do wrestling at his jujitsu gym, and he would like he ended up like cross training. And he always told me it helped him, helped his boxing, helped him when they like walked up in a clinch kind of, and he was able to just he felt like he knew how to work himself in and out. When someone were to tie him up, he said guys get tired, they try to grab you, right? So he
Yeah.
knows how to like get an underhook or like an overhook and kind of like just, the little tricks of the trade, I guess. But, Steven, it's pretty awesome because you train a little bit, and I tell
Yeah.
everyone, I respect anybody that wrestles, anybody that boxes. These are two hard sports. You cut weight, you train hard, it's one on one. They're combat sports. So I think they're both great. They both have the same characteristics. I personally think wrestling's a little bit better just as far as uh, coaches truly care. They want you to succeed. Boxing's a little bit more of a business, a little bit, but if you find the right people and the good people that really want to train, really love the sport, just like, you and I probably enjoy wrestling, that you'll excel and you'll enjoy it. Like, and it'll only help your wrestling. Look at Aaron Pico, guy was a great hand fighter, great snap down. And he always told me that's like, hey, that's from boxing. He's like, if I could box someone in the pocket, I could definitely hand fight with anybody. So it's like that was always his, like, I always remember that about him. And like he was right. So, from Palomar on, I feel like I did really well. I transferred the next year, ended up being All-American as a sophomore, was number one in the NAIA in the country for only had two losses at 25 was to Ronnie Bresser and to a Division two All-American third place finisher. What was his name? Skylar Davis. So really, it helped me. And then obviously at OCU, I was a national runner-up, but for NEI, and I just feel like after I started training boxing, it just only helped me, just helped improve my wrestling. So I encourage anybody, and don't knock it. Just really embrace it. It's only going to help. You know, help your wrestling.
Well, Aaron, on behalf of JT1 Wrestle, I do want to thank you for being a part of the show today. It's been a pleasure. We wish you the best in your life and in your future endeavors in 2025, 2026, and of course from there on out.
Hey, thank you, Steven. I appreciate you having me on. And like I said, I appreciate your work, man. Keep up the good work and go McLeod Redskins, right? McLeod Redskins.